Title: The Visitor in the Night. In the small town of Ravenwood, nestled at the edge of a dense forest, strange occurrences were not uncommon. It was said that the town was plagued by supernatural entities that roamed the streets after dark. Among these entities, the most feared was the visitor in the night. Legend had it that the visitor was a malevolent spirit that would appear to those who were marked for death. Its presence was always heralded by a bone-chilling cold that seeped into the very soul of its victims. Those unfortunate enough to encounter the visitor would find themselves trapped in a waking nightmare from which there was no escape. One fateful night, Sarah, a young woman with a troubled past, found herself alone in her dilapidated old house on the outskirts of Ravenwood. The wind howled outside, and the shadows danced on the walls as she sat by the flickering light of a candle, reading a book to distract herself from the eerie silence that surrounded her. Suddenly, a cold draft filled the room, causing the flame of the candle to sputter and die. Sarah's heart pounded in her chest as she felt a presence in the darkness, a presence that chilled her to the core. A whisper floated through the air, faint and ghostly, "Sarah." Trembling, Sarah tried to ignore the voice, telling herself it was just her imagination. But then, she heard the creaking of the floorboards as something unseen approached her. "Who's there?" she called out, her voice quivering with fear. The room fell silent, and for a moment, Sarah dared to hope that it had all been a figment of her imagination. But then, a bone-chilling laughter echoed through the house, freezing her blood. The visitor had come. Sarah's heart raced as she felt a cold hand brush against her skin, sending shivers down her spine. She could sense its malevolent presence looming over her, draining the warmth from the room. Desperate to escape, Sarah fled into the darkness of the house, with the visitor close on her heels. She could feel its icy breath on her neck, its baleful gaze burning into her soul. With nowhere left to run, Sarah found herself cornered in the attic, the walls closing in around her. The visitor's eyes glowed in the darkness, filled with malice and hunger. As it reached out to claim her soul, Sarah closed her eyes and whispered a prayer, hoping for salvation. But just as the visitor was about to strike, a brilliant light pierced the darkness, banishing the entity back to the shadows from whence it came. When Sarah opened her eyes, she found herself safe and unharmed, the oppressive cold lifted from the room. She knew then that she had been spared, but at what cost? From that night on, Sarah lived in constant fear, knowing that the visitor in the night would always be watching, waiting for the opportune moment to return and claim her soul. And so, the legend of the visitor continued to haunt the town of Ravenwood, a reminder that some entities were best left undisturbed in the darkness.